Barry suggested this title of Reimagining Computing, which I really love, because I want to do a little bit of a backpedal here. I've been watching this company, as Mary Jo had, for a long time, and through many different cycles of its own corporate life. And you may have noticed in my writing, that about, I would say 6 or 8 months ago, I started noticing a pivot at the company. And it's really interesting. I think that for whatever reason, and I won't try to imagine why, but about the same time that Steve Ballmer, CEO, announced his departure, he also got very courageous in making changes at the company. And he's been doing some things there which are encouraging to me. And I've started to call it the new Microsoft. I really think that Steve has found himself some freedom, this is just my opinion, but to do some things he may not have felt free to do before, with the result of more change than before and better change. And so my hope is that we'll have a conversation this evening about this idea of what is the new Microsoft. Is it possible to create the new Microsoft? Where is it going to go? And when Barry said, let's talk about reimagining computing, aha. So this is not a paid advertisement. This is something that I really believe in. I really think the company has taken the first steps to become something different and new after all these years we've been watching the old Microsoft. And Barry, would you start by defining what you mean? Describe for us what is reimagining computing.
Sure. Should be in one of our commercials, Mark. That was pretty good.
Not a commercial.
This topic came to me when I was actually preparing an internal presentation at Microsoft, and I, for whatever reason, stepped back and said, what was it like back in the old days when I first started computing? And I went back and actually dug up the specs for the original mainframe computer, which I programmed, among others, to track the space shuttle. Mainframe computer at Goddard Space Flight Center. It was a UNIVAC 1100. Anybody even know what that is? Oh, there's a couple of folks with gray hair. Okay. All right. And it had, I looked up the specs, it had two 33 megahertz processors. It had a megabyte of RAM and 200 megabytes of disk, all in ginormous washing machine sized, boxes. And I thought, wow, we've come a long way. And then I happened to pull out my phone, and my Nokia phone also has two processors. They run at 1.5 gigahertz each. I've got a gigabyte of RAM. I've got 32 gigabytes of solid state storage, and I can talk to anybody in the world over LTE in real time. And I thought, wow, we've really come a long way. I've got a mainframe in my pocket, so to speak, and actually 1,000 of them. If you look at it through any dimension, it's about 1,000 times, the phone is about 1,000 times more powerful than that mainframe that we use to track the space shuttle, for crying out loud. Anyway, so that led me to start speculating on the limitations are really gone. We have built software for decades now thinking about what are the limitations that the hardware or the amount of storage or the network place upon us. Those limitations don't exist anymore. If we look at Microsoft's cloud, for example, we have something like 1 million servers up there. So we have as much CPU as one could ever want. We have as much memory, as much storage as you could ever want. And we have powerful computing devices that we carry with us all the time. And so it occurred to me that it's time to rethink, reimagine what it means to compute, how we think about applications. And it really means, in a lot of ways, as I wasn't the only one that thought of this, that it's time for us to also maybe reimagine Microsoft a little bit as well.
So Barry, when you think about the computing aspect of this, but we kind of all know about, depending on our age, how bad it was before. But go forward. Reimagining computing going forward. What do you see? What will be doable in the next 5 years or it's not doable right now?
So I think there's a number of things that we could probably spend the rest of the evening on that very topic. But one of the fascinating things, actually, I saw recently, it was actually at your conference, the FIRE conference back in May. There's a couple of guys, two brothers, and they're named the Marouche brothers. I forget the first names. And Kareem and Nasir. And one of them's a cardiologist and one of them's an engineer. And what they did was they built a little gadget. It looks like a cover for your phone. Fits on the back of your phone. And there's two metal plates on it. And you can put your thumbs on those metal plates, and it will do, you run the app, and it will take an FDA certified EKG. And that's really cool, right? And as we start to look at it, we start to see, I saw recently there's a company, I think in this month is coming out with a thermometer that you put in the phone jack of the earphone jack of your phone. There's another one, NTT Docomo has a gadget that will measure in your breath the amount of fat you're burning while you're exercising, blah, blah, blah. So my North Star, Mark, has always been Star Trek, right? So we've got the communicator. Yeah, we got the community. I think we're really close to the tricorder, right? I know there's an X Prize on that. In fact, we were chatting about that the other day. I think we're really close to that. And we'll maybe get to the universal translator in a second. But the other interesting thing about all that, though, is all the data that's collected from these things goes up into a place where the data can be aggregated and analyzed. And we could do pattern matching against that. So I think we've learned recently 23andMe, the genetic testing company, I think there'll be up to 1 million customers this year, something like that. There's all those genes that are up there for subsequent analysis. So over time, as we learn more and more variants in DNA sequences, we'll be able to tell you, hey, look, we just discovered this, and by the way, you might be at risk for this, that, or the other thing. And then we aggregate that with Fitbit data and so forth, and there'll be all sorts of other things. So I think we're getting to a point where computing will be there essentially to anticipate what you're going to need over time. It's going to be less about the tool and more about assisting you in your life.
So we've just come out of an era when you could really easily define a computing device. It's a personal computer, or it's your smartphone, or whatever. And I think what I hear you saying is, forget about that. I think in some way, no matter what those devices, how many there are, or where they are, or what type they are, what really is happening now is we're going beyond those borders. And whether it's the cloud or something like the cloud that has all this information you're describing, and where we can plug in anytime, anywhere, probably someplace. So whether you call it ubiquitous computing or borderless computing, and I know you've done some thinking about going beyond traditional thresholds or limitations. You talk to us about getting beyond those limits.
So many of you, or many of your kids at least, have actually used one of the highest scale, largest cloud applications ever created. You may not have even known it. How many had played Halo or have kids that have played Halo? Well, come on, it has to be more than that. Come on, admit it. Well, so games are an interesting phenomenon, right? Unlike traditional packaged software applications, we release a new version of Office, and the utilization kind of goes like this. Games are completely different. Games, you run at peak load on day 0. And so we built an application framework for Windows Azure that supports millions of users, hundreds of thousands of games simultaneously. And this is the sort of thing now where we start to say, here's a way in which we can make use of all this tremendous computational capability that we've built in the cloud, for these millions of users running, and because of the resilience and because of the failover, and the robustness of Azure, it never went down. And so we look at some of the other game companies that have had troubles like this. This is something that we think is a great exploitation of our stuff. But some of the other areas, I look at the notion. One of the things we've realized over the last few years is that the laptop isn't the thing in itself. Right? The laptop is kind of an instance of a class. My friend Ray Ozzie likes to use that expression. And there are lots of other instances of that class, and we'll be seeing more and more of those coming out over the next few years. I mean, we're already seeing glasses and watches and cars and phones, and so all running operating systems and applications and all talking to this big computing cloud that we built.
I won't mention the name of this competing company, but there was a device from a competing company, and a friend of mine or a relative during Thanksgiving said, "Oh, does that actually?" And she had no idea that it actually would reach out to the web and become browser-based and be like, she'd never even realized it. So I suspect that all these things that we have, whatever they are, wearable or will all have the ability to do that. And it's only going to be a matter of what is that particular format best at.
We've evolved, and there have been companies, frankly, that have evolved faster than us in this, but we've evolved to a point where I call it the dual overhead cam syndrome. How many remember the car ads in the 70s, in the 80s, and they would tell you, we've got dual overhead cams. I have no idea what a dual overhead cam is, to tell you the truth. All I want is a car that gets me comfortably to work. I can put on the classical music station in Seattle, 98.1, I guess it is, and have a comfortable ride to work. And what we've realized is it's about the end-to-end experience. It's not about the nuts and bolts of computing. So making the tool as transparent as possible to the users, and not having to worry about how you set up the the connection to the cloud or running the browser or what have you. That's a clear goal for us.
So when we picture this world without limits, whether it's ubiquitous computing or whatever term you want to use about that, it seems to me this plays into Microsoft's home field, because it's one thing to have a cool object that somebody made in some place, and everyone wants to have Hello Kitty or something. But when it comes down to I want to have a reliable system that will give me privacy, that will give me security, that will take care of my stuff, that I can plug in my radio, do Pandora on it. I can plug in my whatever I'm plugging in, do Facebook, do your stuff, do Bing, and any part of the world, any country, any time, my house, my other house, some other place. There aren't that many companies that I can count on to do that. There are a few, but there aren't 100. There are just a few, and of those few, it's kind of a fight right now, I think, to see. This is a pretty big prize at stake. If this vision that you're describing really comes true, wow, because you get to be the trusted agent for everybody in business and on the consumer side. Does it look like that to you?
Yeah, I think this is a vision that we had, over the summer, and it caused us to start and complete, actually, the largest reorganization we've ever had in the company's history. And in the old days, we had the team that built Windows operating system. We had another team that built the Windows Phone operating system. We had another team that built the Windows Azure operating system, and so forth. And they had their job was to focus and ship. And what we realized was that wasn't the most efficient use of our resources. And so, we did a significant reorganization. We said, now we have the operating systems team, we have the gaming and hardware team, we have the applications team, and we have the cloud and enterprise team. And that's where we think that, we start to think that really addresses, I should say, the whole devices and services vision that we see emerging now in the future, where we see multiple different devices, all of whom needing an operating system. So we have our operating system guys here. We have all those devices will be talking to a cloud and applications in the cloud with different resolutions and different form factors and so forth, but to be talking to these services available in the cloud, and so on and so on. And so, we think we've restructured the company, and this is 100,000 people, right? Microsoft's up to 100,000 employees now. This was a non-trivial exercise in organizational dynamics, but we're there.
So now I've got a kind of a tough techie question for you. In the world today, there are those who kind of think open systems, open source, open everything, open innovation, and there are proprietary companies too. And when you look at the world, if you're going to go out 5 years and say either who wins this, maybe that's too naive a question, but Microsoft will need to be part of that world. And with all of the pressure toward complete openness and free software, free Android stuff, here, take this, I don't care what you do with it, modify it, the hell with that. And you guys are very Catholic. I mean, we're going to make the best thing, we're going to keep control of it, we will be responsible for it, we will do product support for it. So you have such a different business model than this kind of Wild West thing that's going on. And I'm wondering how you see the two playing together and what happens.
Well, actually, we play together pretty well already. In 2005, I think it was, Bill published a memo on interoperability, and it became a key goal for the company to ensure that the systems we build talk to all the systems that our customers actually have. And so, we joined a lot of the open source communities. We're platinum members of the Apache Foundation. Why? Because even there's a lot of open source applications out there that run on Windows, and we want to make them run as best as we possibly can on Windows. So we think we play quite well in that space right now. We realize that to be an enterprise player, you have to do interoperability really well, and we have. We meet with our competitors, we do testing to make sure that our systems interoperate well and so forth. We sit on all the standards committees. We actually do open up our source code to selected customers and to governments that ask for it. And so we think we actually are pretty open.
So I think you're describing a world in which you are both things, or you are all things. Okay. If you look inside the companies, a lot of folks here pay enough attention to Microsoft that this will actually matter to them. I guess I'd like to ask you to do two different things. One is, if in your mind you could consider column A and column B. And column A is yesterday, Microsoft, and column B is tomorrow, Microsoft. Can you describe what those two columns, how they differ from each other?
So we talked about this a little bit a moment ago, but column A was a Microsoft that was suited to a different time, right? This was a Microsoft that was fixated on shipping products, right? And so when we were working on Windows Vista in Windows 7, Steve Sinofsky said to the developers, "Thou shalt focus on shipping those products and not do anything else." Well, times have changed, right? So when we came around to Xbox, we just shipped, as hopefully many of you have your Xbox Ones. All right, well, there's one. But Xbox One is an incredible example of how we got a whole is greater than the sum of the parts effect from Microsoft. And so we had, the Xbox team obviously deeply involved. We had the people from the operating systems group who are lending their expertise. Dave Cutler, who wrote Windows NT, was one of the coders on the Xbox. We had the IE team, the Internet Explorer team, building the browser components of this. We had the Microsoft Research working with the Kinect and with Windows Azure and building the actor-based frameworks to support all the Halo stuff we talked about. We had the Skype team working with it. And so when it all came out, you had this incredible revolutionary breakthrough device that the Xbox One really is. And we can talk about that at length, but it's really a remarkable new device. And so I hear from people who are playing a game and having Skype video conversations with the people they're playing games with. It's an extraordinary experience. You hear the Kinect people who are leveraging the machine learning that we did in Microsoft Research and elsewhere, that allowed us to be able to detect how excited you are in playing the game, and maybe we'll throw some more zombies at you because you're really into it. Things like that. This is all of Microsoft coming together to make a great, great experience.
I heard from somebody, that, I'm sure everything you're saying is true, but the thing that really impressed me about Xbox that I heard from the outside, I don't have one yet, is that it actually learned. And there was this person describing using this as a voice-driven channel, guide operator. And at first it didn't get it, and then it got it, and then it started to anticipate it. And I thought, how many other pieces of software are there today in your common life, in the consumer world, that actually do learn and do improve their performance? There are probably more than I think, but I thought that was really striking, because we all want that. I want to jump a little bit. When you look inside the company, and so the company, I know that the Xbox is a good symbol for this change, but around that, there are some other bureaucratic changes that have happened. And I think all these things matter. So I know that the stacking ranking thing, that, actually General Electric, I think, used to use this, and I would guess that Steve Ballmer may have gotten this, or somebody else, from General Electric. But this whole idea of the 10% at the bottom and stacking in each group, and that's gone, I think. You guys have let go of that. And it seemed like a very positive response from the employees at Microsoft. Would you talk about that for a minute? And does that affect the kind of the warring factions or silos of yesterday, and does that move you more into column B?
That's a great point. I think it does, and I think that there was a perception, and there was some reality to all of this, that the old stack ranking method led to competitiveness even within teams there have to be so many people who get the highest rating and have to be so many people who get the lowest rating, so I'm going to do my best to make sure that you get the lowest rating and I'll get the highest one, presumably. And how much that actually happened isn't, I don't know how true that is, but certainly that was a perception. And so we moved to something a little bit that gives individual managers a lot more flexibility. And really, our goal is just what you said, Mark. It's to really drive that one Microsoft, that cross-group collaboration that is just absolutely vital, to succeed in the world, as we see it today. Because, we're facing, we continue to face, unprecedented competition. We love it. Competition makes Microsoft better, so it's good for us to have that kind of competition, and we have to be at our best. And we do think this is one of those things that will help us.
And I'm guessing that the most important part of this whole story, if it works out the way you hope that it will be internally in terms of excitement in the ranks and passion in the ranks and more sense of possibility and not about money, but about creating great things that the world can use.
Yeah, I'll say a couple things about that. One is that, our goal has always been, and we've been successful at this. I always say that Microsoft has the highest IQ per square inch of any company in the tech industry, whether or not that's true. I think it's true. And our goal is always to get as much value out of that investment that we've made in these 100,000 great people that we possibly can. So, that's certainly part of our objectives. The other thing is that this seems to be a time of incredible innovation right now, and that's really got the people jazzed at the moment. A couple of examples. We talked about the Xbox One as an example. Any of you have a chance, go to research.microsoft.com. You want to see something that is completely mind-blowing. Check it out. There's a video there by Rick Rashid, who founded Microsoft Research, and he's talking at a conference in Shanghai. Has anybody actually seen it? So you watch this video, and he's talking to a couple people. He's talking to an audience in Shanghai. And then all of a sudden, he says, I'm going to demonstrate something to you, and he motions off stage. And he says a sentence, and then it's simultaneously translated into Chinese in his own voice. And so, it literally took people's breath away in the audience. In fact, there's a picture of somebody with tears coming down his eyes. I don't know if that moving, but the point is that we're at a stage now where by putting the pieces that we have together, speech recognition, translation capabilities, speech synthesis, and so forth, we can start to achieve these. We come back to the universal translator in Star Trek. Well, we did it. And, it's incredibly exciting, and you think about the possibilities for bringing barriers down in the world. I mean, think we're not that far off from your kids, collaborating on a high school science project with somebody else in China or Japan or Europe someplace, and language is not the issue. The translation is just happening in the background, and it's good. And that's another example of where, some massive investments that we've made in machine learning are really starting to pay off.
So I think all of us been watching Microsoft spending a huge amount of money per year on R&D. Could be the largest. 9? Wow. It's probably the largest spend of any company. Is that likely? Close to it, probably. But certainly a huge amount, and this going back a lot of years. And so I'll just state an opinion for a moment. I know that under Bill Gates and probably under Steve, there was some idea of let's make sure that this research channels into products. But it seems to me that what you're saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, will the company be more willing, more able to take the really cool stuff that billions of dollars have been spent developing and turn it into exactly the kind of thing you're talking about, this instantaneous translation, whatever it is. We've seen a lot of videos about Microsoft's vision of the future. Will those actually become products?
I think so, and I think we've already seen a lot of them become products. More maybe than you already know. The spell checker and the grammar checker that's in Word, for example, was something that originated in Microsoft Research. And there's lots and lots of other examples like that where we've seen the we call it tech transfer, moving from research to the products. And I think that there's this renewed spirit of optimism, of innovation, excitement around this that I think we will probably see more and more of that. One of my other favorites, by the way, is and you can find this on the research website. We have some folks that are working on what's called affective computing, which is the ability of computing devices to sense your mood. And the gadget that they've come up with, and this is useful stuff, right? If you want to know if the words that you're speaking, like I do now, are landing, it might be nice to look and see if shirts are turning blue or whatever. So like a mood ring, but actually this wonderful demonstration where they've hooked up essentially a shirt, looks like a little bit like chainmail, but each of the little panel on each, there's like hundreds of these little panels, about an inch long or something like that, and they're all connected to servos, and it can detect when you're under stress, and when you're under stress, it literally raises the panels on the back, so literally your hackles get raised. And it's fascinating stuff. And as we start thinking about how that now folds into, some of the stuff that we're thinking about in other areas of devices and services, some of the areas around healthcare and so on, some of the areas that we think about, how do we make a meeting easier to have, more productive? We'll see more and more of that stuff coming into products.
I saw one product. I was doing some research on this morning, which the more I looked at it, the cooler it got. And it was a fellow, we have a lot of Atlanta people, from Atlanta, I think, and in your team. And he was describing putting a big screen on a wall and then plugging it into his mom's house. And the idea that, and Microsoft has the technology apparently to create parallax. You can look around and see around in the room in the other place, So that place might be in Atlanta while he's in Redmond or Virginia, I guess. And so, and then the idea that it's just part of your house. So your mom's in your house, right? Or your family, your dad and mom. And when you walk by that wall, you wave to them. They wave to you back. It's real time. Now that was pretty compelling. And that level of vision brought into a real product that you could buy in a store is something that would be life-changing, I think, for people. We're out of the little AT picture phone into kind of a change your entire housing existence. Well, my favorite example of that, and this is possible today. Craig Mundy showed this 4 years ago or 5 years ago when it was not possible, but he showed this picture here. You're sitting at a table, and your phone is on the table. Now, today, all phones have GPSs in them, right? So the phone can detect where you are. Maybe you're in a restaurant. So the phone says to some cloud service, Barry's in the sushi restaurant. The cloud service says, aha, here's Barry. I know what Barry likes. Barry happens to like tuna and doesn't like unagi. And so we match my preferences with what the restaurant offers with the menu that it looks up, and then beams me back, here's what I recommend you order. And maybe it even ties in someday to the workforce management system in the restaurant, summons the waiter over, and I've already ordered. I'm not sure I quite want to go that far, but hey, well, don't I have something to say about this? But the point is, this is, again, this anticipatory computing, right? I'm here to help you. I'm not here to solve tell the story. My uncle was the chairman of the math department at Babson College in Massachusetts for a number of years, and he worked in the early days of the vacuum tube computers and all that, and mostly for military applications, radar, calculating trajectories of artillery shells and stuff. So it was a computing device. It was a computational device. You give it a problem, it would solve it. And he lived long enough to see this great transformation of the computing device from being purely computational, as a programmable, adding machine, calculating machine, into a communications device, something that actually started to bring people together through different channels. And you loved email and instant messaging, and later on things like Skype and so forth. And so it became more, as much a communications and media device. And I think we're now on the verge of this next stage. I've been calling it anticipatory computing, where with all we know about you, with all the machine learning we've done, we can anticipate, like that person in the restaurant, what it is you might like, what are the things you might like to order, and how we can actually go about doing that for you. So I'm not going to ask you who the next CEO is going to be. I'm not going to ask you that question. But I think it would be interesting. We don't have a lot of minutes here, but let's just for a minute turn this back to the group and see, do you have comments for Microsoft? If you had a top Microsoft officer here with you right now, what would you say the next CEO should do, or what should the company do that would make it better? You know, what are the one or two things that would really do a pivot for Microsoft?
I was with a bunch of our new college hires. I told a couple of people the story out front. And I said to these college hires, we have the mock program we call Microsoft Academy for College Hires, and they go through rotations. And I said, what would you do if you were the new CIO? And one of them said, it was a really remarkable thing that he said. He said, I'd go talk to your hardware manufacturers. I said, why? He says, well, how is it possible? And this is unscripted, unsolicited. How is it possible that Microsoft's first PC, the first PC we ever built, Surface, is the best one out there? And I thought that was kind of he wanted to, that was his message back to the CEO.
Good team member. I think we're done. So I want to thank Barry. We've hit a little bit over our time, and I want to thank all of you. I think you can sense from Barry's attitude, at least I do, there really is a chance to have a different kind of Microsoft. You don't feel like the old Mike. You feel like column B to me, Barry. So I really look forward to the next Microsoft, and I appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you.